Each year, NASA pours a staggering $22 billion into space exploration. It seems that putting a man on the moon and sending probes to the far reaches of the solar system have only served to fuel man's desire for knowledge of outer space. But while we look to the skies, there is a great unknown much closer to home, and that's inner space. The workings of the human brain are in many respects a mystery to us, and the world of dreams is no exception.
We all dream, but some of us dream lucidly. Scientists claim to have established that while remaining asleep, we can become aware that we're dreaming and then start to control the course of our dream, as if directing a film.
I was on holiday in Portugal when I dreamt that a friend of mine contacted me to say he had to go to a funeral. He was very upset. The funeral was in London. Could I go with him? And the next thing I knew, I was in a big funeral limousine following the hearse with him, and he was very upset, and we were in terrible traffic. He thought we were going to be late getting to the crematorium, so I said, "Don't worry, we'll fly." And with that, the car took off into the clouds and soared over London. It was absolutely wonderful. All the sensations were very vivid. The colours were brilliant. I could see everything, I could feel everything, and I had this enormous sense of power. So when we arrived at the crematorium, there was a crowd of mourners there. I was able to turn the whole event into a party.
With this dream, Diana Clift joined those people whose lives have been changed by the mysterious powers of lucid dreaming.
At first, it was an ordinary, vivid dream. I was walking along a beach, and everything was wonderful. And then I saw some coins, and I knelt down to dig them out, basically. They seemed to grow, and it occurred to me, the only explanation here is that this is a dream. I decided to conjure up a dream partner. So I saw a stack of deck chairs, and I thought, well, behind the deck chairs will be this person. And first, there was no one there. I looked up, and as I did so, a girl was walking towards me. And she was short, with dark hair, rather curvaceous, in a bikini. She came up to me and said,
"Hello, my name's Jane."
And we embraced and had quite a nice dream together.
Dr. Keith Hearn had this dream over 20 years ago. He became so interested in lucid dreams that he started to study them.
We still don't know why we dream. It's just a mystery. We dream for about 2 hours every night, which tots up to 6 years or so in the course of a lifetime. And REM, or rapid eye movement, dreaming sleep, occurs every 90 minutes or so in the sleep period. When I started my research, it was thought that you go mad if you didn't dream. But studies have shown that there are certain drugs, antidepressants for instance, which completely knock out REM sleep, and yet people show no harmful effects. I wanted to prove that lucid dreams were genuine dreams. The problem was that in REM sleep, the body is actually paralyzed, except for the eyes. So I had the notion that I could get subjects to signal by moving their eyes left to right several times. I also had a method of inducing lucidity by giving electronic pinpricks to subjects at a level which would not waken them, but would be incorporated into the dream, and so establish lucidity.
Among the subjects of Hearn's experiments to prove the existence of lucid dreams was Pam Green. She can still remember the lucid dream which led to a scientific breakthrough.
I was roller skating downhill, which is quite a scary experience for me because I don't roller skate. I was aware that the ground was disappearing beneath me very quickly. I had a wall on one side of me and a roadway on the other. So I had to be very careful that if I veered off a straight course, that I would either crash into the wall or run into the road. I felt the pinprick. This was the signal for me to look left and right and signal to Keith. For some reason, I felt I had to close my eyes to do this. This worried me slightly because it meant that I may crash into the wall or run into the road. However, I risked it and found afterwards that I was okay. I was now aware, because I was dreaming, that it was perfectly safe to do what I wanted to do.
It was an incredible experience when I first saw the signals from a person who was in a lucid dream. Suddenly, a sequence of left-right eye movement signals came through. It was like getting signals from another universe. It was amazing.
Hearn's next quest was to discover how the powers of this mysterious world could be used. It's long been known that dreams offer a source of creativity. One of the many artists inspired by dreams was the 18th century Italian composer Giuseppe Tartini. After dreaming that the devil played a violin to him, Tartini woke and wrote the music now known as the Devil's Trill Sonata. Hearn himself has tapped this reservoir of creativity.
In this dream, I was walking along a riverbank with my girlfriend at that time. Now, in reality, the relationship was breaking down, and I was feeling very upset about this because I really loved this woman. And the dream seemed to reflect the sadness, and at that time, I heard some music. It was a flute tune, very plaintive. Anyway, on waking, I wrote down the music and developed it and called it Walk to the Pagoda, and it's since been recorded.
Hearn believes that anyone can harness the powers that lucid dreams offer.
Lucid dreams are an amazing phenomenon, and they can be available to anyone. I think they constitute the ultimate therapy. They can make us feel good, they can banish phobias, fears, and through lucid dreams, we can heal ourselves. One such example is where people have chronic nightmares. You can actually change nightmares to pleasant lucid dreams. And the trick is to change your mindset from thinking, oh my God, here's the nightmare, to great, wonderful, here's the nightmare. That means I'm dreaming, and I can control my dream.
But some professional dream therapists believe that if we try to change the natural course of dreams, we're avoiding important messages that they can give us.
I do believe that dreams have a functional meaning. I think there's a reason for us to dream. And I believe that the unconscious gives us another perspective on things. And that is part of the point of the dream. When we're stuck in a situation, sometimes a dream will illuminate the situation in a completely different way. My concern about lucid dreaming would be that it seems that it might be actually interfering with the dream as a communication from the unconscious, a letter from the unconscious, as somebody once described it.
Michael Edwards has other reservations about the way lucid dreams can be used. Carlo Rossi is a personal trainer. 2 years ago, his father died. Shortly after, Carlo had an ordinary, non-lucid dream about him.
We were hugging each other, and I went to look at his face, but I couldn't quite see his face clearly.
Carlo is now determined to try to use lucid dreaming as a way of re-establishing contact with his father, to see him again fully.
Grieving is a necessary process and usually, inevitably, a painful process. It would concern me if lucid dreaming was seen as a kind of panacea, a way of avoiding that, a way of opting out of it, a way of escaping the pain of it, and therefore never grieving properly as a deep emotional experience that we have to go through. It's too facile, it's too easy, I think, just to say, well, it's so good I can call up my father again.
For those people who want to induce lucid dreaming, a whole technology has sprung up. It's claimed that the Nova Dreamer, for instance, can alert you when you're dreaming.
It consists of a soft sleep mask that you put over your closed eyes and you go to bed. When you're dreaming, your eyes move rapidly from side to side. The sensors in the mask spot the eye movements and realise that you're dreaming. Then it waits a little and it flashes a red light.
These machines that are on the market at the moment, which claim to be able to induce lucid dreaming and give you these wonderful nights of entertainment, I think are an awful idea. I find it very unhealthy, this notion that instead of just having dreams, we have to view them as some sort of entertainment, some sort of commodity.
I think some people might consider the Nova Dreamer to be a toy. But we've had some so amazing stories, we know it's more than that. For example, once we had a guy who was chair-bound. He was physically disabled. With the Dreamer, he was able to walk around the countryside and fly above it. And he went from being depressed when I first spoke to him to somebody feeling full of their life and revitalised.
I think that in the next century, a lot of people will have their own dream machines and be able to conjure up virtually any situation they want at night in their dreams for recreational purposes. But I also think that technology is going to advance so much that we'll be able to see what people are dreaming by monitoring the visual cortex, so that we'll be able to actually watch this on a television set.
Presumably we're going to have to pay somebody for the privilege of seeing our own dreams. And I think it's a pity that we're now starting to see our own mental processes in these terms as just another form of entertainment.
Keith Home believes we may only have to wait about 15 years before it's possible to record and play back our dreams, just like TV programs, I suppose. We might even pop down to the video store and rent someone else's for the weekend. A bit like examining another person's laundry. You might have noticed that children have a unique and very direct way of looking at things. Their minds are free from the worldly clutter which preoccupies adults. Could this mean that children are more receptive to unworldly phenomena? Some observers believe that they can possess exceptional psychic powers.
Former teacher and psychologist Cassandra Eason's interest in psychic children was triggered by an incident involving her husband John and her young son Jack. The story begins one Sunday morning in 1988.
I'd been up most of the night with a teething baby. We were having breakfast and I was desperately waiting for my husband John to come home from his overnight shift.
Journalist John was doing his usual morning motorbike journey from his London offices to his Reading home, over 40 miles away.
Oh, look at the mess!
We looked at the clock and I thought he'll be home any moment now. Jack looked up from his cornflakes and said,
Mummy, Daddy's gone rolly boys on his bike, but he's okay.
Eat your breakfast, Jack. God, where is your father?
I was driving home when all of a sudden I just hit this patch of oil. I was trying to slow down and skidded on it and came off it. The bike wasn't too badly damaged. I wasn't too badly damaged either. I just picked myself up and kept driving home.
Sometime after 11, the sound of John's motorbike was outside. I rushed out.
I know what happened. Jack told me.
Just a few cuts and bruises, I'm okay.
Jack told me.
Of course, at that moment, it all fell into place.
I was fairly stunned. I couldn't explain it at the time.
It had turned out that about the time Jack had said what he'd said, John was actually falling off his motorbike.
I tried to work out some sort of logical explanation. It might have been that he was expecting me to have an accident because I had a motorbike and he'd heard about people having motorbike accidents. But I couldn't explain the coincidence of the time that he said it was about the time that I was falling off the bike.
The episode intrigued Cassandra, who began researching children's psychic abilities.
I've come across thousands, not just hundreds, but thousands and thousands of experiences involving children.
Since the incident involving her son, Cassandra has found enough material to write several books on the paranormal, detailing the claims of psychic powers in children.
All children seem to have a latent psychic ability, but it's something that people find frightening because it's not something you can take into a laboratory and weigh or measure.
So what is the scientist's view? David Marks is a professor of psychology at Middlesex University.
It wouldn't surprise me if we found more psychic reports from children than from adults, but I would suggest that this is bound up with their very fantasy-prone personalities.
Fantasy, perhaps. But that can't explain what happened to 7-year-old Erin Solomon, who seems to have premonitions about her family's cats.
Erin woke up one morning and she'd had a dream about Zach, our cat. she dreamt that he was killed. He was killed in her dream.
There was this girl and she kicked Zach into the river, and then someone found his body in the river, and then I woke up and I thought Zach was dead. I ran into my mum's room and I told my mum about my dream, and she says he isn't dead, he's still alive, it's all right, it was only a dream.
Then a few days after that, we realised Zach was missing. He didn't come in for his usual feed and things. So I contacted the vet, and they said that they had found a cat that fitted Zach's description. When I realised the dream had come true about Zach, we remembered that she'd had other dreams about previous 2 cats that we had.
I had a dream about my cat Rance. I had a dream about my mum had a party and they dropped a penny on the floor, and my nanny told Jasmine to pick up the penny, and before Ramp swallowed it, and she swallowed it, and it got stuck in her throat and she died.
Within a few days of Erin's dream, Ramps died. Erin also dreamt that a third cat they had, called Gandhi, died. Within 2 days, he too had passed away.
When we realised that she was having these dreams and the cats were then dying within a short period of time after the dreams, we did realise that this was quite strange.
Many parents will be familiar with their young child having an imaginary friend whom only they can see and communicate with. Some children claim they're talking to a dead relative, perhaps someone they've never even met. 13-year-old Nicholas Mason from Wolverhampton believes he's contacted regularly by his dead granddad.
My father was an amazing character. He was very, very well loved by everybody, and I can close my eyes now and I can see his face clearly. When I told my father that I was pregnant, he was thrilled to bits, and when it was a boy, he was the very first grandchild in the family. He wouldn't put him down. They were very, very close. And after my father died, Nick, to say that he was only 3.5 when my dad died, he missed him terribly.
He really cared for me. He took me everywhere, took me to the park, out, shopping, got me nice stuff.
After his death, Nicholas felt his granddad still talked to him. His mother didn't think too much of it. It seemed a comfort to Nicholas. But then when the family car, once owned by Nicholas's granddad, was stolen, something happened that no one could explain.
It got to about mid-afternoon and Nicholas was playing with his friends on the green, and he suddenly came up to me and he said,
Mum, I know where the car is.
What do you mean you know where the car is?
Granddad told me.
Now, I always believe in listening to a child. So I said, all right then, where's the car? And with that, he goes off into the corner of the garden, and I can see him nodding his head and shaking his head and listening and thinking. And then he came back and he says, Grandad says you know where the car is, Mum.
Granddad said he was next to these 2 bridges.
What do you mean, 2 bridges?
2 bridges that you could go over and under.
Do you mean Bridge North?
No, not Bridge North. It's where we used to have picnics.
24 hours later, police found the stolen car abandoned by the thieves 7 miles away. Roseanne was asked to pick it up.
Mum, there's a car, and there's 2 bridges, just like Grandad said.
When we found the car in the exact place that Nick had described, I was absolutely thrilled to bits. To me, it was proof what Nick had told me had actually happened.
The car was parked next to 2 bridges, near a picnic spot, just as Nicholas said his granddad had told him.
If you'd have said something like that after the car was found, oh, Grandad told me it was going to be found in that place, then yes, there would have been a lot of doubt. But he told me before the car was found.
So how do scientists explain claims that children can talk to dead relatives who give them information they couldn't possibly know? Coincidence is one explanation.
I think to a scientist we can explain it in terms of the children's imagination, which is extremely vivid.
But is there a darker side to some children's apparent psychic abilities? Could it in fact be harmful? The Church believes it can. The Reverend Tom Willis is a Church of England exorcist. He is called in, usually by distraught parents, to exorcise demons they believe are possessing their child.
Exorcism is part of the Church's healing ministry, which has been revived a lot in recent years.
Reported cases of children being possessed by spirits have risen steadily since the abolition of the Witchcraft Act in 1952, a repeal which decriminalised practising the occult.
Since then, a lot more people have dabbled in our generation in the occult, in seances and Ouija boards and astrology and tarot cards, and the Church has to mop up the results of all this. There has been an increase in the number of people asking for this ministry, and the number of children involved has also increased.
Reverend Willis has exorcised many children who he believes were possessed by evil spirits.
Well, I recently had a case of a young child of 3 who was swearing and blaspheming, and they knew the child couldn't have learnt this and said, "Who's telling you all this?" And she said, "The old man that comes into my room, he says these words." And eventually, when we prayed for the repose of the soul of this chap and blessed the house, they moved house, and they say now there's no more problems.
Are these genuine cases of spirits possessing children with psychic abilities, or is there a more mundane explanation?
Children can believe sometimes that they're possessed, so can adults, but in children it's very, very vivid. There are much more rational explanations. For example, a child has a dream that they are being possessed by some sort of spirit. They wake up the next morning, they're very frightened by this, they tell their parents, and the parents panic and contact the local priest. The priest comes along, he may himself believe in spirits, he then reinforces the belief in the child, and they go through an exorcism. But really here what we've got is a medieval story, a medieval fairy tale to explain and interpret complicated experiences.
Well, whether or not kids are psychic, one thing's for sure. They do have special powers to wrap you around the little fingers. Good night.